Do you love working at Google and why? How long do you see yourself working as a PMM at Google for? Wow, my manager is getting sneaky. My friend wants to ask you, what's your ideal type? Do you have a boyfriend or do you have a girlfriend or boyfriend?
¿Por qué no los dos?
Is your life journey as perfect and easy as your videos? Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. First of all, thank you. 100K. I mean, I always hoped I would get here one day. And if I'm being very honest, I sort of knew I would because there's just so much free, high quality resources out there that teach you step by step what to do. For example, like Ali Abdal's Skillshare course on Final Cut Pro taught me everything I needed to know about like video editing, and channels like DSLR Shooter, Gerald Undone, Think Media taught me everything I need to know about like camera gear and lighting, right? And thanks to my parents, I've always had, you know, a very funny, attractive, somewhat narcissistic personality. So thank you, mom and dad. Anyways, Q&A, basically you all ask me questions in the YouTube community tab and on Instagram. And these questions broadly fall under these categories: career, personal and dating, YouTube journey, productivity, and motivation. So we're gonna go in that order. I've left timestamps down below as well, so feel free to jump around. Let's just get started. First question, do you love working at Google and why? How long do you see yourself working as a PMM at Google for? Wow, my manager is getting sneaky. Nice try, boss. Nice try. Okay, so I do love working at Google, and I think the biggest reason is because I feel psychologically safe here. For those of you who might not have come across this term, it's when you feel very comfortable admitting you've made mistakes or admitting failures you've made in front of your team and especially your manager, because you know that they're there to support you rather than to judge you, right? And I know not every single team is like this, not every single technology company is like this, but I'm lucky enough to be in a team and working with cross-functional teams that make me feel psychologically safe. How long do I see myself here for? Pretty long time. I do really enjoy the work. I work with app developers and I like the people I work with. So probably next 5 to 10 years, if they'll still have me. Tips for post-grad life. I'll be graduating in a few months. Congratulations. So here's my unpopular opinion. And I might get a lot of hate in the comments for this, but I would recommend you work hard and develop a skill set. And don't expect to make a large impact right away or immediately work on something you love. And here's why. In order to make that large impact, you usually need the support of like senior leadership and, you know, cross-functional teams from different product areas. And as a fresh grad or someone with minimal experience, you don't have that credibility yet. So they're not gonna, you know, put down or give up their own agendas just to help you. So I would say for the first 1 or 2 years, work hard, develop a skill set that you can leverage in the next step of your career. So when the opportunity comes, you're ready for it. Third question from Andrea. What was the most difficult experience in your career, whether at UI or at Google? So I would say the first 3 months at Google was extremely difficult. I had just joined from management consulting and joined the sales team at Google. I had no sales experience. I was suddenly managing clients in industries I had no experience in, and everyone else seemed to know what they were doing. So it was very, very stressful. But like every new joiner, I got through it. I shadowed a lot of the senior sellers who taught me a lot about, you know, sales and account management. I made a lot of mistakes. I had to do a lot of homework outside of my working hours. But after 6 months, I felt comfortable, right? I knew what I was doing. But looking back, the first 3 months was very, very tough. Except the popular social media tools for job search, which other areas and places we can try reaching out to for potential job roles? So something that doesn't get talked about a lot is actually like alumni databases from your college. So I went to Emory University, we had a college alumni database, and we were able to see all the alumni who graduated, where they worked, their email, and their phone numbers. So I would just cold call or cold email them back when I was a junior and senior. So definitely do that to establish a connection and network. Networking is very, very important. It's much more important to network than try to have that perfect resume, cover letter, or LinkedIn profile. I have videos on networking, so I guess I'll link that down below. Moving over to personal questions. Do you plan to use what you've learned, eventually start your own company down the line, and what would that be? So if you're talking about like the productivity tips for like Notion and Google products and all that stuff, probably not in the near future, because number one, I enjoy my full-time job way too much to give that up. And number two, this YouTube channel started as a way for me to like share and like teach, right? So starting a company or having another business was never the end goal. If money wasn't concerned, I'd probably be a professor in like a college or a high school somewhere because I just like to, share stuff. So no. All right, so please do book recommendations. I would like to know what you read recently. What's your favorite book? So 3 books I'd highly recommend that I've read recently. First of which I think all working professionals should read is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It basically breaks down like negotiating into terms that we would all understand and we would feel comfortable doing it after understanding the underlying principles. And the second book I think all marketers should read would be Contagious by Jonah Berger. So long story short, he breaks down why things go viral. And there are six principles that he talks about. For example, one is called social currency. The idea there is if I tell you something amazing, you would respect me more and think I'm cool, right? That's how I would share with you in the first place. So I think that's very interesting. And finally, it would be a fiction book. I actually like to read fiction more than nonfiction. And in particular, I like the John Rain series by Barry Eisler. It's about a Japanese, like American-born Japanese assassin who tries to do good. It's very interesting. I recommend you check it out. Third personal question, how to be good at speaking. There's really no magical formula here. It's just all about practice. So I used to be pretty bad at public speaking, and I would just memorize presentations first. That's not ideal, but it helped me become less nervous because I knew like what I was gonna say, and it stopped me from just reading off the slides, right? Then I would work on adding like pauses in between my sentences to make it sound less monotone like this that puts you to sleep, right? And then I would purposely add like hand gestures, right? In the middle of my presentation. And now it just comes like very naturally to me. Like you just need to practice. All right, are you single? My friend wants to ask you, what's your ideal type? Are you straight or gay? Do you have a boyfriend or do you have a girlfriend or boyfriend? So I'm straight, I'm single. I think if I were to date right now, it would be very unfair for that person because between my full-time job and my YouTube channel, I really just don't have that much time for dating. Or as the authors of Make Time would put it, I'm purposely not making time to date because it's not a priority for me right now. But if the right person comes along, who knows? What are the top 3 to 5 cities in the world that you have the most interest in visiting someday and why? So number 1, I would say Berlin because I've never been to Germany and I speak a little bit of German since I took it for 2 years in middle school and I want to experience Oktoberfest. Number 2, I would say Moscow because you hear all these stories and see all these memes about like, Russia, and I want to see just how much of that is true. And finally, Cape Town in South Africa because I have a friend who works there as a freelancer. The cost of living is apparently very low, but he charges like American rates, right? So he lives very comfortably, and he's showing me these beautiful pictures of where he lives and like the view that he has. So I want to check it out. Okay, on to rapid fire personal questions. Ali Abdal or Matt Davella? Ali because he's just more practical. He gives more practical tips, and because I have bigger biceps than Matt. Favorite feature within the Apple ecosystem? I would say definitely AirDrop. It's so convenient when you have an iPhone, Mac, and iPad, right? And let's say I sketch something out on my iPad, I can quickly AirDrop it to like my phone or my laptop and share it with others. Can you speak Chinese? Which languages do you speak? 我不会说中文. Who is your favorite YouTuber? I don't want to say Ali. I don't want to mention Ali again. So I think my all-time favorite YouTuber would be like Ryan Higa. He doesn't do YouTube anymore, I think. But looking back at his older videos, he's just like a comedic genius. How do you like your work and life in Shanghai as someone with international background? I love it. Shanghai is a very international city. There's a huge expat community here. And I would say there's something for everyone, right? So no matter where you're from, you can probably find a group of like-minded people to hang out with. How do you eat your steak? There's only one correct answer. I'm not a huge steak guy. I like steak, but I'm not very particular about it. So I would say the answer is medium rare. Right? Rare doesn't make sense, and I know well done is wrong, so I think medium rare. All right, moving on to the YouTube journey questions. What motivates you to start a YouTube channel? How did you start uploading videos on YouTube? So many of you probably came across this channel through one of my like productivity videos, but I actually started off and I still do content on like career and job search, right? And the reason for that is when I was in college looking for my first full-time job, there weren't that many high quality, easily accessible content on those topics. So I made a lot of embarrassing and frankly speaking, humiliating mistakes throughout my job search process. For example, once I was literally laughed out of an investment banking interview, and to make things worse, I knew it was because of my fault. I wasn't like well prepared enough, right? It wasn't their issue, although the laughing kind of hurt. So I thought if I could just help like younger professionals or fresh grads not go through that painful process, not make those same mistakes I did, that'd be pretty cool. Okay, what do you see the future of your channel as? How do you think your content will evolve to reach 1 million followers? So the goal is to definitely not reach 1 million followers. It's 10 million. No, just kidding. Because I've definitely drank the Kool-Aid from Ali, right? I do sincerely believe the journey is a lot more important than the destination. And if I end up optimizing for that 1 million subscriber account, I might have to put out content I'm not particularly proud of or that I enjoy doing. So I think the future of a channel, the content will still revolve around like 3 content pillars, career and productivity, because those are topics I feel very confident I can add value on, and third, like personal, right? So we can have these chill sort of conversations. Congratulations, thank you. My question is, how can you make your video look so clean and clear like that? They're so professional. So the TLDR here is the lens matters more than the camera body. So if you're not budget, get a cheaper camera body like the Sony ZV-E10 and get a lens with like a lower f-stop, like a f1.4 to 2.8, and like use 24 to 35 millimeters to get that blurry background look, right? And lighting matters too, soft diffuse lighting, and it doesn't hurt to have a face like mine. Just kidding. Moving on to productivity type questions. Do you prefer digital productivity or physical tools? What are the best tools to use for the GTD methodology? So I know that recently there's been a trend to use like analog tools, right? But I still maintain that the tools and apps themselves don't really matter. You just need to find a process that works for you. For example, when I want to like plan out a YouTube video or something at work, I like to sketch it out to get a bird's eye view on it, right? And when I actually start to figure out what teams are doing what and have a more detailed structure, I will type it out in a Tricks or Word doc. And on the more personal side of things, the free version of Todoist is more than enough for my needs. I talk about how I use it in a video that I'll link, down below. But I know people that have really cool structured, Todoist setups that utilize all the paid features for. For me, that just add too much friction that is not even worth it anymore. So again, it just depends on what works for you and sticking with it. Microsoft 365 versus Google Workspace, which one do you prefer and why? So I've never used Microsoft 365. I use like the old offline version back in college. But I think Google Workspace is pretty cool. It's pretty good. If you do use Microsoft products, I highly recommend you check out Layla's channel and Kevin's channels. They're like the thought leaders on Microsoft products, so highly recommend them. Do you believe that modern ways of information exchange like videos and podcasts can be used as a substitute for reading books? So I know the answer you're looking for, but unfortunately, I don't believe they can be good substitutes because the books just good books go very in depth, right? They give a lot of examples and can tell you way more than like an 8-minute YouTube video ever could. So the next time you're in a situation where you can apply one of those principles, the book content will probably stick with you more than like a short video or podcast. Moving on to motivation questions. How to not get overwhelmed by the abundance of information and also avoid FOMO. Everything seems so shiny these days. So I think the trick here is to cut down on some of those distractions and replace that with like a hobby or meaningful work. For example, I used to really enjoy going out and partying, right? I would go out like once a week. But ever since I started making YouTube videos, I've cut down on that drastically. I go like once a month or once every 2 months now because I just enjoy making videos so much more than like, drinking. Yes, I still do feel FOMO sometimes, especially when my friends are sending me videos or pictures of their nights out. But I tell myself I made a conscious decision to commit to this and I'm gonna see it through, right? And although I can't like teach you or tell you how to find the thing that excites you, I would say The Motivation Myth by Jeff Hayden is a very good place to start because understanding how motivation works could give you some inspiration on what things you can try. All right, next question. Hello, Jeff. Hi. As much as I appreciate the way you are, for someone like me who's totally the opposite of you, it's really difficult for me to follow you. Is your life journey as perfect and easy as your videos? To be honest, I was going to deflect this with like a joke or sarcastic comment because that's what I do when faced with an uncomfortable or tough question. But I could tell you're very serious with this question and I want to give you a serious answer. So right off the bat, no, my life journey is not perfect and I'm definitely not successful in all aspects of my life. And I think this speaks to, number one, the whole social media is not very authentic thing, right? It's usually not as pretty or as perfect behind the scenes. And also, I'm not sure who said this, but there's a quote that goes, everyone is fighting a battle you know nothing about, so always be kind. And I definitely agree with that. And second, taking a step back, I like to share a lesson I learned when I first started going to the gym. When someone said to me, Jeff, you should be looking at no one else but yourself, unless you're trying to learn proper form or technique. And I think this is a very good analogy because it's useful to look to other people for inspiration and motivation, but it becomes unhealthy when you start comparing yourself to them because it's very easy to develop a victim's mindset at that point. You start to think, oh, why can't I have that versus what can I do to get that, right? And I think this mindset shift has really benefited me in developing my mental strength throughout the years. So I'm very grateful for the person who said that to me. I'm not sure whether that answers your question or not, but maybe just let me know down in the comments below. All right, next up, how does a completely disorganized and erratic person like me ever adjust and create a routine? Where do I even start? So I definitely have thoughts on this question. I read a book ages ago, I forgot the title, but it argues that willpower is limited. So as you go throughout your day, your willpower decreases. But the good news is it's like a muscle and can be strengthened. So the book argues, and what I did was to focus on like one new habit or hobby I want to develop for like a month, right? So instead of trying to wake up early, meditate, eat healthy all in one go, focus on one of those things for like a month. And by the end of that month, it will feel like second nature to you and you can start developing the second habit, right? I found this to work for me for sure. And for specific techniques, I would recommend James Clear's Atomic Habits. It's a very popular book and he shares a lot of really, really good insight and practical tips on how to build, good habits. Last but not least, congrats. How do you beat perfectionism and overcome failure? So I definitely have a method to deal with this, but I don't think it's very scientific. And my method is called distraction plus time. So basically, whenever I fail, it hurts. I distract myself with something else, like playing video games or reading a book. And then when it doesn't hurt as much, I come back and figure out a game plan to try to improve. For example, when one of my YouTube videos doesn't perform as well as I thought it would, it sucks. I'm like, oh, I thought this was very useful, but I guess apparently not. So I would actually first distract myself, like take some time away from looking at analytics. When it doesn't feel as painful, I would come back and try to analyze why that video in particular didn't perform well and what I can do to improve next time. Again, not very scientific, but it works for me. Okay, that was a really long video. Please leave an emoji, any emoji down below to let me know you've watched until the end. Thank you, really appreciate you. And now on to 1 million subscribers. Nah, just kidding. 10 million. Bye everyone.